All right, I am Lester Sanders, your 2020 president of Kentucky Realtors, and thank you for being with us today. And I say today especially, I'm sure you could have found plenty of other places to be after spending a week of leadership training and board meetings. To CEO Stevens, 2021 President Hinckley, and the KYR staff, again, thank you for your work on delivering an important and informative leadership conference. And thanks to this Presidential Advisory Group, the now, the future, and the bridge to the new normal for this session. We have an amazing panel to discuss, excite, encourage, and motivate us as we move to 2021. Let me briefly introduce our speakers and panelists. I'll start with Dave Parks. Dave is the Senior Vice President and owner of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services and Parks and Weisberg Realtors. A retired Marine Corps officer, Dave has an extensive sales and sales training background. His experience also includes the President's Circle, the Chairman's Circle, and the Legend Award winner, one of only 3 in the state. He's actively involved in the building and real estate development, both residential and commercial. He's a past NAR director, KYR past president, and current Kentucky Realtor Government Affairs Chair and Director. Thank you, Dave, for being with us today. Greg Taylor entered the real estate industry as a realtor in 2005. He's not slowed down since. A sales manager with the Simmons Realtors, a Berkshire Hathaway affiliate, and is responsible for approximately 70 realtors. He has a long history of high production in the business. Greg loves education so that he and his team of agents can properly help their clients with all the real estate needs. He is a member of both the Southern Indiana Realtor Association and the Greater Louisville Association of Realtors. Greg is a past president of the Greater Louisville Association of Realtors and Metro Search, a past NAR director, Kentucky delegate and graduate of KYR Leadership Academy, and a 2009 graduate of Leadership Kentucky KYR. Prior to joining real estate, Greg built a family transportation business that had over 50 semis and 200 trailers, but he decided that he wanted real estate. So Greg, thank you. Thanks for being in the business. Rounding out our panel, we're excited to have award-winning author Chris Estes. Chris is a former collegiate athlete, baseball player as a matter of fact, and a competitive triathlete. As a side note, he trains and competes with our CEO, Steve Stevens. He's an award-winning, and I'm talking about coach, I'm talking about Chris at this point, and I'm sure Steve is too, award-winning coach and teacher. Chris joined the network marketing and quickly climbed to the top in 3 years. He and his wife are real estate investors holding over 300 units and 23 million in assets under management. Chris has 2 Amazon bestsellers and currently focuses on speaking, training, and mentoring those who are hungry to become their best selves. And he'll share with us the A.P.P.L.E principle today. Thank you for being with us today, Chris. We really appreciate it. Moderating this session on planning and goal setting is Kentucky Realtor past president, PAG chair, owner of the Breland Group, NAR director, and this year's winner of the prestigious Kentucky Realtor President's Honorable Service Award, Lamont Breland. I'll turn it over to Lamont.
Thank you, Mr. President. I thought you were going to say honorable mention, so I was going to get offended there a little bit.
I thought about it.
And thank you. Thanks, Lester. You're doing a great job this year. Well, gentlemen, welcome. Thank you all for being here. Chris, we're going to treat you like a kind of like a guest because you're the only one that doesn't have a real estate license. So we'll defer to you on all things. But Chris, thanks for being with us, and Greg and Dave, my good friends and colleagues. Thank you guys for being with us. So Chris, tell me a little bit about the A.P.P.L.E principle. Steve was talking so highly about you as a triathlete. He says that he's taught you probably most of the things you know about being a triathlete. That's not true. But yeah, so I downloaded the book. 87% of realtors suffer from RDR, which is realtors don't read. So I love my Audible app. And as I've been walking my dog at night, I've been listening to Chris Estes, and it's a great book, timeless truths. But I love the John Wooden quotes. You got a lot of great sayings, and of course, John Wooden, I like the one, it's what you do after you know it all.
That counts.
Is what counts, it's what you do after you know it all is what counts. So tell us a little bit about the Apple principle, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. Lamont and of course, Steve, for inviting me today on this Zoom. I love what you guys are doing, learning together, coming together as a community. And Lamont, if I look back for a second, I have to go back to when I was a teacher and a coach. And I looked and had done that for 10 years, and I did something called a life audit. And I think all of us at this time of the year, every year, it's what my wife and I do, which is a life audit. And I did that back 12 years ago. And what I learned was I had full-time jobs, but a part-time life. And I was going to spend my life raising everybody else's kids and never see my own if I didn't make a change. And, your life doesn't get better by chance. It gets better by change. And I understand the only person likes change is a wet baby, but we must change in order for things to change. And so I simply took the advice of Abe Lincoln and said, good things may come to those who wait, but only things left by those who hustle. And so I was running and gunning. I started a side business as I was teaching and coaching. There's only 86,400 seconds in a day. There's not 86,401. So, a lot of times people talk about managing time. Lamont, you can't manage time. You can only manage yourself and, prioritize. And so I was running around with like a chicken with my head cut off. And fortunately, I got tied into really good mentors, people that I'm sure in Kentucky Realtors would say Lamont would be a good one, or Steve would be a good one, or Dave or Greg or whoever. I got tied into some really good counsel. And one that many of you maybe heard of is a guy named John Maxwell. And John Maxwell has written 75 some odd books, sold many, many millions of copies. He's considered the biggest leadership guru in the world. And I was fortunate and blessed to be tied and mentored by him. And he taught this concept to get into the Apple principle. I'm just kind of framing it up here, Lamont, is John taught me this concept of the rule of 5, meaning if you were to take an axe and you were to take a swing at a tree, whether it be a big tree, small tree, so the tree being basically the goal and the swing of the axe being your actions. If you were to take 5 swings of that tree every single day over the course of time, what would happen to the tree? Well, the tree would fall down. And so as I started to process that with my busyness, and I said, you know what? There's this whole concept about apple. We've heard the saying, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Well, what about an apple a day brings success your way? And so I just took each letter, an acrostic, if you will, acronym of Apple, A.P.P.L.E, and started focusing on what are some winning things I could do every day that, a teacher could do, a coach could do, a real estate agent could do, a real estate investor could do, where they could win day by day. You don't win in a day, but you win daily over time. We're in a microwave society, but it's a crockpot process. So, we focused on the Apple principle. A stands for attitude. Your attitude in life determines life's attitude towards you. And attitude is a choice. We can choose to be better or bitter, or we can choose to be a winner or a whiner. We can choose to have our cup half filled or half spilled. It's all a choice that we have. And then you move into the P, which is prepare. Preparation relieves pressure. You mentioned a minute ago, alluded to John Wooden. I think he's the greatest coach ever lived. He said the game is won before the game has begun. And so every day we either prepare or repair. And so every day you have that winning attitude. Every day you prepare, you move into perform. Action is what creates traction. And so there's 3 kinds of people out there in life: people who make things happen. That's all of you on this Zoom. There's other people that watch things happen. They're typically in the right place at the right time, but they watch. And then there's people who wonder, what just happened? And so we all have those choices to make things happen as we prepare into then the letter L of Apple principle, Lamont, which is learn. It's what you learn after you know it all that counts. And so to be a continual winner, you must be a habitual leader, a habitual learner. And so we have to ask ourselves, what are we reading? What are we watching? What are we listening to? Because what entertains us trains us. What we tune into, we turn into. And so we have to be cautious, and I call it defense. I'm an athlete, or, I'm a sports guy. So, a lot of times we talk about offense, but sometimes we have to talk about defense, and we have to guard the things that we put into our into our mind. And so we finish with E, and I think we'll probably focus on that one for a minute. which is evaluate. You must assess to progress. Constant refinement is necessary for continual improvement. So we must always be assessing to progressing in our real estate venture. I'm a real estate investor. I started as one house. Now there's 300 plus units, multifamily. I love real estate, by the way. I have some buddies that are actually on this Zoom here. So I love what you guys do. And I love the real estate game. So, that's Apple principle in a nutshell, Lamont. I could obviously do a long seminar, and I do that from time to time, but that's a quick snapshot of Apple in about 3 minutes.
Cool. All right, well, let's start off. So we've got a Marine, we've got a football player, and we've got a baseball player. So, Greg, you played college football. Let's look at the A in the attitude. What are you doing over at Seminole to help your folks out? I mean, you talk about a bad attitude type of few months here. You've got agents that are, really at home teaching their kids and trying to juggle a career along with their family. It's hard to have a good attitude, man. What are you doing over there?
I start with waking up. I put both feet on the ground and I start running. So I love the one-liners, Chris. Playing a football, you got to keep it short and sweet for me. So I loved it, man. I got that whole speech memorized, I think. But, Lamont, you're talking about attitude. The market's been really good this year, for Greater Louisville. So let me give you some statistics. In order to know where you're going, you got to know where you've come from, right? So all of last year, 2019, we've sold just under 18,000 homes. Today, up to this point, we've sold 17,568 homes. We've got 2,400 impending.
Mm-hmm.
Look at what we closed last month on average was 96 homes a day. We're going to probably sell just as many this year as what we did last year. The key factor is, though, we had half the inventory that what we did last year. So our agents and our market, we're still moving. We're still working. What we're doing as a company is putting our agents in front of themselves in a lot of situations. We make it mandatory to do a business plan. In order to know where you want to go, you got to have a map. You got to have a roadmap to get there. So we sit down and we lay that out. What are you going to do? How are you going to get there? We look at what's being successful. Where did you come from? Is currently what has made you today. And let's build on top of those building blocks in order to get you there. Very
good. Mr. Parks, thank you for your service, brother, as a U.S. Marine. We appreciate that. And I know I think you got your mute on.
Yeah, I got it unmuted. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, I think there's several things that we've tried to do that we feel like have put us in good stead getting through this process. And some of them are technical type things, but most importantly, it is that attitude piece. And, I tell this story all the time that back in 06 and 07 and 08, I was probably in as bad a spot as any realtor from a financial perspective because I had done some speculative building and developing. And like most people who've taken risk in business, it put a lot of stress on me. And one night I kind of sat bolt upright in bed. I hadn't slept very well for about a month. And I said, there's nobody shooting at me and I didn't have to kill anybody today. So I don't really think I have much of a problem. And that attitude change completely and totally changed my life. And the second thing that happened is I came into the office and my sister Judy handed me a coffee mug that said, "Life is all about plan B." And those two things from an attitude perspective, really we have carried forward for that full 10 or 12 years since then. We approach every day not as a struggle and an obstacle, but as an opportunity. I say you can't beat a market, you can only beat your competition. My measure of our success is not, whether or not there's 18,000 houses sold this year or 17.5 or 19.5. Our measure of success is, did we get more than our fair share? And I think as long as you stay focused on that, that helps a lot. From a how to communicate that and how to work through that and how to help people with that, we really have embraced the technology of, video calls, video messaging, staying very, very engaged with our clients and our customers, as well as our agents. And the last thing is trying to take that attitude piece, lead from the front, and carry it over to the agents, and then just ask them to take that same concept with their clients. And I think that in a situation like we're in today, I really think that attitude is what begins your preparation, which is going to lead to Chris's next comment. If you've got the right attitude, it's easier to prepare.
So Chris, I like one of the things you said in your book. It's pretty overwhelming to think I've got to reach out and touch 1,300 people, right? But to do 5 a day, that's a little more manageable. And actually, that did inspire me to what's the holy grail of a realtor's existence? Your mailing list, your contacts. So, as a broker managing agents, I've gotten a little lazy on keeping that bad boy up. So I've really focused on trying to get that up to date, and it's overwhelming. I mean, when you've been in the business forever, you got hundreds and hundreds of contacts. So I just tried not to look at the bottom number. I just try to keep 5 or 10 in front of me all the time. And it's just, it can be daunting. What is that principle of your touch 5 people a day? I think you have a name for it.
Yeah, so you just nailed it right there, Lamont, which is touch 5. I say 5 a day will bring freedom your way. And whether it be my personal business, or whether it be your real estate business, whether it be 3, maybe it be 5, if you do something often enough, a ratio appears. So some of you, it may be 10. It may take 10 to get the 1, or it may be 5, because your skills improve if you prepare, meaning you're always looking through the call. How did that call go? Did I say the right things? Did I record and listen? Oh my goodness, I said I didn't make the so you're always assessing to progressing. I know we're talking about prepare. Noah built the ark before the rain came. And so I love what Dave said on, attitude really builds for the prepare, getting your mind right. But I do something called a big rock, meaning we only have that 86,400 seconds. And what we do is we time block on what is the must do. And for most of us, if we're in the people business, people is our business. So the big rock for me is to make sure that every day I'm having that relational call, that prospecting call, and I call it touch 5, meaning it is my job every day to touch 5 a day. And over the course of a year, how many people is that? Well, it's a lot of people.
So you mentioned, so this is like our 19th town hall. So the first one was like, not that we're good at it now, but I had that on I put it on my computer, because as I was listening to him, I was like, gosh, man, I say a lot. I need to quit saying that. So, all right, let's talk a little bit more about preparing and preparation. So, I'm not a good athlete, but I like to get out there and try. So I've been playing basketball and all that kind of stuff, 5-on-5. And, when you get in your mid to upper 50s, it gets a little difficult. And then COVID hit. So, I found myself not doing anything, not getting in the gym, not doing it. So I was trying to find something to inspire me. And I came across jujitsu, which is not a very good COVID friendly type of thing, but it's given me a purpose, a reason. I get out in our little gym and I put the YouTube on and I'm listening to people that are doing jujitsu. And one of the guys that does it is a black belt. He's also a ex-Navy SEAL. And so I've been listening to his podcast, and where I'm going with this is just the parallels between the preparedness and discipline of the military and athletes. And one of the guys the other night, he was talking to an ex-Vietnam SEAL, been in for 38 years. And he was talking about how when they went to war, they had volunteered to go. So they had a different attitude, but he was talking about the difference between people that were, 18, 19 years old and got drafted. And they had, they went from graduating from high school, go to basic training. And then a few weeks later, they're on a hill fighting for their life with not much training. And he would just said how unfair that was. And it made me think of some parallels about even in our business and probably in yours, the difference between the people who are, basically drafted into our business and just have basic training, and the ones that just, the preparedness and the training, and Dave, you can relate to this, of people at a different level, special operations or folks that are, it's unbelievable. It's like professional athletes. They train all the time. And how do you get that motivation or inspiration when you're selling health products I think that's what Zija is, and or real estate. How do you find that inspiration? And I'll open that up to anybody.
Well, I would only say before Dave and Greg, and I really enjoyed listening to Greg and Dave, is your why is your drive. The strength of, I say the strength of your reason will determine the length of your season. We all have different seasons in life. And in our professional life, there's a season, and maybe our athletic life, there's a season, right, Steve? But the strength of our reason why we do it. So when we figure out the why, the how will come into play. People don't care. Listen, people don't care what you do; they care why you do it. And when you find your why, you'll find your way. So I think your why has to be your driver, your why driver. What is your why?
Good stuff. David, Greg, got anything?
Well, I think there's really three things that I would say, and one of them is a definite reinforcement to what Chris just said, which is that if you don't get in, and I'm talking about deep in your gut why, and I'm sure Chris is too. The story I always tell is there was an agent that came to me years ago, and she was struggling a little bit, and we had a conversation about why was she in the business at all? Because she had another full-time job. And bottom line is she wanted to put braces on her kids' teeth. And I said, okay, so every day you look over there and you visualize all those teeth straight and paid for. And a couple of years later, she came in my office in tears because it was done, right? That's the thing Chris is talking about. He's talking about that thing that really is in our gut, right? And I'm going to tell you, you need to share it with somebody else so they can help coach you through when you're having a hard time. Because the reality is this business is not an easy business. If it was, every knucklehead would be doing it and super successful. And the other 2 points I would make is that you've got to practice. Okay. You look at all of the very best in every profession in the world, and they practice. Okay. And that practice is what's going to get you prepared, because what you're trying to develop is muscle memory. And that muscle memory comes from habits. And that's what Chris's 5 a day is all about. All he's saying is pick a something, do it every day. Our buddy Joe Hayden says something that I love. He says, a real estate agent is to get up every day, talk to a lot of people, find the people who need some help and help them, and ask all the rest if you can stay in touch. How simple is that concept, right? And the first time I ever heard Joe said it, I went and practiced that 1,000 times till it rolled off my lips like butter, because it's a no-brainer, right? And so I really think if you focus on practice, muscle memory, and focus in on, like Chris said, a big why that's really in your gut, you're going to have tremendous success at anything you do.
Good stuff. Anybody else want to add anything before we move on?
I'd just say practice makes perfect. If you practice anything enough, you'll get perfection out of it. And as real estate agents, a lot of times we use our clients as our practice, and that's not the way to go about this. Grab one of your agents, grab your teammate, grab somebody, and practice before you go out there and actually play the game. As Dave said, and as Chris trains, we do everything 100 times before we ever go and actually play the game of life.
Good. And Chris, I'm like you. You said that you don't jump in your car unless you've got something motivational, inspirational playing. I try to do the same thing. And what I found is while people change, we don't really. Our core needs are the same. So when you go back and you listen to the Zig Ziglars and the people that have been dead for years, it's really, isn't it all pretty much the same, but just packaged a little bit different?
Absolutely. 100%. I mean, Zig is a big mentor of mine who I never met, and there's so many of my mentors I've never met. But when I'm driving, I have drive time university, as I call it, which I'm always trying to feed my mind with good things. And I can hear through the passion of Greg and Dave. They love what they do. They know that they're adding value to people. And that's the name of the game. When you know your value, you're doing something good for the society, doing good for people. You can sleep at night knowing that nothing wrong with making money. Good people do good things with money, and I know there's good people on this call.
Absolutely. All right, let's move forward to performance. I've joked with friends for years that I thought of eBay, I thought of Google, I thought of a lot of cool things back in the day, but I just didn't execute. Yeah, talk to us about performance. I mean, I guess that's it all comes down to game day, and it's time to execute.
Well, there's a lot of people that have lots of knowledge. They learn, but they don't apply. And I'm more of a fire then aim kind of guy. So I'm an action guy. I act, and I learn. I think most people have plenty of knowledge in their particular field, and they use that as their crutch. Lamont, a mentor once told me, God feeds the birds every morning, but he doesn't throw worms down their throats. You got to go get it. And, my whole principle about Apple is, you take this big concept of real estate and you think about how many homes or how much revenue you want to produce. But if you do take it into a day by day, hour by hour, by the mile it's a trial, by the yard it's hard, by the inch it's a cinch. If we focus on that just inch by inch, we'll get a first down. We'll get that sale. We just got to, ask questions, gain intel that determines our point of entry to offer and meet the need of the client that we're talking to. So again, it's just going out there, talking to many more people, and taking that action and not letting the knowledge be your crutch. Because at least in my businesses, the things that I do, that's a big crutch for most people, Lamont, is they think they have to know it all, which becomes analysis paralysis. And listen, it's not the most intelligent person at the table that wins. It's the most intentional and consistent person that takes action that wins. So I can tell you, I'm not the show. You all graduated cum laude. I graduated, thank you, Lottie, but I took action to produce the result.
I've heard you say a few times about mentors in your life and folks that have helped you along. And I'll open this up to all three of you. Dave, you talked a little bit, alluded to accountability. Let's talk a little bit about mentors and accountability partners. How important are they? And do you all have any besides me and Steve?
Greg, I'll let you take that one first.
I've been blessed my entire life, having great people around me. Henry Ford was the best at hiring. He always hired the smartest people. I've had great mentors throughout this industry and this business, and prior to this, my whole life, I've been blessed with positive people around me. I try to wake up every morning, make sure I get my gratitudes and my positives and my affirmations in there. That gets my mind right, and I'm always looking for someone to sit down with and pick their brain, because Lord knows I don't have all the answers, and my perception may be different than others. So it's a matter of sitting down and meeting and picking their brains, especially in this industry. You can't know it all. So it's imperative that you reach out. It's hard right now, but don't use it as an excuse. Pick someone on this call that you have some interest in, and pick them up and have a Zoom call with them and say, hey, what are you doing in your market? What are you doing in your area? What's making you successful? And have that call with them. Ask those questions. It's amazing. I love a new agent. They bring me new energy, because after 15 years of doing this, it's hard to get up sometimes, but that energy level of a new agent is absolutely phenomenal for me.
Good. Yeah, I was going to ask, what does that look like? Let's say you're one of our folks is out there saying, gosh, I don't have a mentor. So what does that process look like? I guess, and I've said this to agents, if someone called you up and said, hey, Greg, listen, I know we've met a couple times, but I've been following your career, and this may sound silly, but I'm just really impressed by the way you lead your life. Would you consider maybe just every once in a while meeting for coffee or something? Who would say no to that? Right?
Well, you'd be surprised. There's some out there that will. Dave brought up Joe Hayden name. He told me no one time, and now we meet on a regular basis. We give each other a hard time. But
He plays hard to get.
oh, he does. It's that energy. They don't know no. When you've been told no so many times, you start to think, and you get stuck in that mindset. I'm looking at 100 no's and to get to that yes, right? You hang up on me, I'm going to call you back and say, I'm sorry, the phone disconnected me. That's the kind of mentality that I've got is run through the wall. It's probably easier to go over it, but it's just faster to go through it sometimes.
I'm going to butcher this story a little bit, but I had a guy, he was actually the son of a client. Now we're on a board together. But he told me a story that when he was a freshman, I think it was at EKU or Western, he didn't know anybody because he was from Louisville. And he thought, well, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the president's office and introduce myself. So he walks up to the president's office at the university, went to the secretary and asked if he could see the president. And she said, first of all, who are you? And do you have an appointment? He said, I do not have an appointment. I'm a freshman here. And I just wanted to meet the president and say hello. Well, long story short, he went back, got an interview to go in and talk to the president, and they've had like a lifetime relationship ever since then, all through college and beyond. But I mean, just to do that, I mean, if you don't ask, you don't get. And I always thought that was the coolest story.
That's biblical there, Lamont. You have not, you asked, you asked,
Yep,
you have not. And, I think to my only closing comments on that piece is you would be surprised as to the successful people in whatever area they want. We want to be a river, not a reservoir, meaning we want to give back what knowledge we have. We want to share it with the next group of people. And I've been nervous in my years to make an ask, but all of these top people like a John Maxwell, think about a John Maxwell. If you don't know John Maxwell, you should. Look him up. He is a personal friend of mine. And because, Lamont, I asked him to mentor me, he said yes. And he is one of the top leadership gurus in the world. And so don't be, I was scared, I was fearful, but I did it. And that's what all of us have to do is make that call. And it goes back into your why drive again. Why are you doing it?
I think, Lamont, the other thing I would add, though, and watch Chris's head, because you're going to see it going up and down in a minute when I say this. John Maxwell's not getting together, have a cup of coffee so that Chris and him can talk about how great they are. Okay. John Maxwell is expecting you to tell him what your strengths and weaknesses are and really open up. And that's what I was talking about earlier. If you're going to get an accountability partner, you got to be bold. You got to be willing to really share what's in your gut. What are your fears? What are your joys? What are your aspirations? That's where you really get that great mentorship from. And the other thing I would share is this. He who fails the most succeeds the most typically. I tell agents all the time, if your batting average is 1,000, you don't fail enough. Hell, if it's 500, you don't fail enough.
That's true.
Okay. So one of the things that Chris was saying earlier is this analysis paralysis comes from the fear of failing. You just got to get up every day and just be willing to take a chance. And you got to open up to your mentors. You can't get mentorship if you won't be honest with people and really share where we're at. Because, they don't want to waste their time if you're not going to be really genuine and honest with them.
Let's talk for a minute about failure and humility. Chris, I know you got a group of 100,000 or whatever it is. And Greg and Dave, you all manage hundreds of agents. How important is it to be vulnerable with the people that respect you and open up, to be humble and just say, look, boy, have I made some mistakes, how important is that?
If you're not humble, you'll stumble, and people read right through that. You want to have authentic leadership or authentic service, service before self. I can tell you, when I first started this side hustle, if you will, I was a teacher and coach. The guy I'm talking about may actually be on this call. I had great intentions, but here's the thing. I had great intentions, but I lacked attention. I lacked attention to the details of how to actually reach out to someone, how to sell someone, if you will, to how to ask questions, rekindle that relationship. And this certainly correlates to your businesses. And so I reached out to a friend, Lamont, that I hadn't talked to in 10 years. He's a 5-star player, high quality. He's a successful real estate agent today. And I told him he'd be great at this business. We should do it. Anyway, I just butchered the whole thing. And so what I had to do is what I call a U-turn. And so I had to eat the humble pie. I always tell people, to be human is to mess up, to connect, you must fess up. And so what I had to do is just apologize. And that's why I say screwing up spiritual gifts of mine is I've learned that that's now a gift. That's actually a strength of mine, which is when I mess up often, I let people know that I have great intentions. I'm still learning. I will never be an expert in my field. I will always try to improve, but I'm going to mess up. So I think just being authentic and making sure people know that you're not perfect, and that you don't portray to be perfect.
Guys, we have a little chat room over here too, and there's a couple of questions that you all can, if you have a second, just look over there and see if one was about a quote. And I will remind all of our listeners, if you have something, feel free to put it in the chat. Or hey, if you've got something to say and you want to talk or expand on something, Paul, I'm not sure if they can unmute themselves, but
yes, they can.
Okay, yeah. So if you'd like to just raise your hand if you want to join the call and ask any of our guests a question, I think that'd be pretty cool to be able to do that. All right, let's move on to learn. So we got attitude, prepare, perform, and we're getting ready to eat the whole apple. So we're at learn, and I'm going to start off with our real estate guys. What anything specifically that you all are doing to help your teams or agents learn or create an attitude, a culture of learning?
Dave?
Well, so we do right now, when we used to be face-to-face, we did it a different way. But right now we're doing probably in a typical week, 4 to 5 sessions for agents to get into on calls, just like we're on here. Some of them have a very specific intention. But one of the things I do every week is something I call Coffee with Dave. And sometimes it's Coffee with Judy, but we get on there and we let agents ask any question they want to ask about anything, to include, what should I say when the seller says this, or what do I do about X, or whatever. Doesn't matter what it is. And with no script and no forethought, we just talk through it with them. And I really think that does 2 things. First thing is, it reinforces the thing you were talking about earlier about being humble, because there's going to be times when I'm like, I'm going to have to figure that one out. I haven't seen that one before. Or, what I used to say was this, but I've learned from mistakes that this is what you want to do. So I think that's the number one thing we're trying to do, is be very communicative, have lots of calls like this and talk through things with folks. And just be very honest and open with them about those. And then we do have some that, of course, Lamont, are scripted toward particular outcomes. The most important of which right now is really what Chris said. How do you manage the process of talking to your 5 or 10 people a day over a long period of time?
Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
I don't know if anybody would show up with Coffee with Greg. I may have to try the bourbon or something. Who knows? But it seems like we do about 3 different sessions a day on average, each manager. So we have the open session with our groups. We embraced Ninja out of Colorado as a company. So we do a lot of Ninja, 16-week process. We also have Google Classrooms that we use for direct topics. We do a lot of line by line education through the different parts of the contracts and the addendums. So I feel like I'm on one of these things about 4 different times a day. That's why I haven't stopped long enough to come up with a really cool background. If anybody wants to send it to me and teach me how to do it, that'd be great. Because, you know, I had to turn my screen just to make sure that it wasn't anything in it. So,
Great sequence.
you know, it's going back is you've got to find the people that are positive, that make your life and your business better, and you've just got to dive in and embrace the process and embrace the systems.
You know, the coolest thing that I've found, not that it's even new, but is just get on YouTube and just Google any name, any topic, anything, and there's thousands of hours of people, experts, just talking about just being real, and it just doesn't cost you anything. So that's I think that's a great resource for everybody.
Lamont, let me mention one other thing real quick, because you asked earlier about accountability, and I want to tie these two things together. When you're doing training or you're doing education like this, one thing you need to be very open to is constructive criticism. And, before and after, Greg was a football player. He's watched thousands of hours of film. Go to the agents that are around you and ask them to tell you what your film looked like. And for me, one of my greatest accountability things is my children, because I'm blessed now that they're, spending some time in our company, and they'll come to me and go, "You can't say that." Or, or, "Hey, I know what you were trying to say because I know you, but nobody else understood what the heck you just said." So I just think it's important as you're going through these learning processes, we don't get as much feedback sometimes, nonverbal feedback. Make sure you're checking in and watching the film.
That's good. Anybody else?
I would
All
only
right.
say, Lamont, as it relates to anything we've talked about today, whether it be attitude, prepare, perform, learn, is the intentionality of it, because you just hit it. You could go to YouTube and type in, but most people don't do it. And the reason they don't do it is because something else has taken that 86,400 seconds. That we don't get 86,401. We only get 86,400 seconds. So why are you winning, Lamont, and the other person not winning? Because you're more intentional with the time in these specific areas that's growing you in the areas of your life that you want to do well with. So I think we have to understand that power word of intentional or intentionality. And we have to make that decision, kill all doubt, that these are some things I need to do better, and I'm going to do them, and I'm going to help Steve do them with me. That's why on Friday mornings, he and I are up at 5:30 a.m. We're riding on our trainer downstairs, and we're virtually riding and talking and pushing one another to be better in the fitness area of our life. So intentionality, I think, is key in all of these pieces.
All right. Well, we've got just a few minutes left. We can end where we started on evaluate. Any closing thoughts from any of you guys on just evaluate? And I'm not talking about just business, and I know you aren't either. It's whatever your values are: faith, family, integrity, business, community. That's what I say that I'm about, and I struggle with each one of them every day. But it's important to be balanced, right? And not be just all about real estate or all about, whatever. And somebody mentioned, it's not bad to make money. Yeah, money's important. If you're out of money, you're probably out of integrity and have to do things that you wish you hadn't. But so how do you all evaluate in all the buckets, as you say, Chris, all the buckets of your life, knowing that you're never going to achieve perfection, but how do you all evaluate in your game plan?
Yeah, so Lamont, we do something called a calibration vacation. And so every quarter, 4 times a year, and some people say, "Oh, well, we can't do that." Sure, you can. You can make a decision that this is important to you. Assessing to progressing. You want to progress in your life, you must evaluate your wins and losses, what's working, what's not working. So my wife and I, we take a few days every single quarter, and we're getting ready to do it at the end of the December, and we look at our scorecard. I'm a sports guy, and so I like to know where the points are. Who's scoring the points? Who's getting the rebounds? Who's getting the deflections? Are we winning the game? In the end, you want to win some ball games. And so it's not just effort. Effort's important, but we want results in our areas of life, as you talked about with the buckets. We focus on faith, family, finance, fitness, food, fun, philanthropy. Knowing philanthropy sounds like, so those are the 7 areas that are important to us. And we look and do what I call the 3 R's. We reflect, we refuel, we regain control. And when you think about reflect, we reflect on 3 other R words: relationships. We focus on responsibilities and returns. And then there's 3 words that we focus on within those: keep doing, stop doing, start doing. Do we need to continue, keep investing with Steve in our relationship? Do we need to stop investing in that relationship? Do we need to keep depositing into Lamont or not? When we look at our responsibilities, most people, the problem is they're not in their strength zone. I know I'm only good in a couple of spots, and I try to stay in those spots. So it's this whole strength zone piece, your responsibilities. You need to keep, stop, start doing, and then you continue to roll through. You got to think a thought. You got to slow down to speed up. And so that's exactly what we do during this assessment time, to look at our life and our business, obviously, and then, regain control with some of these tools, how you start your day, how you finish. So
Can I expand on that for just a minute? When you were talking about possibly kicking Steve to the curb, no, but that you say something about that in your book about, relationships, not all relationships are meant to be there forever.
that's right.
And how important is it to figure out the toxic relationships in your world and kind of divest yourself from that? And how do you do that? I mean, it's not like just unfriending them on Facebook. How do you go about that?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, we do it every year, Lamont. We call it double TF, trim the fat. And we trim the fat with our the problem with most people is they collect relationships. They collect and they collect and they collect. That's why they're not moving very fast. It's like, why is Chris moving so fast? Because he carries light, meaning there's only a handful of people in my first circle that I'm actually going to invest, deposit, meaning there's these relationship accounts. I'm constantly depositing into these accounts. There's a small group in the first circle where I'm going to really deposit into, because I know I can extract lots of value. If you can't give me value, you're not going to be in that first. So there's different circles, but you don't just say, all right, I'm done with Lamont. It's now Lamont's going to be on a Zoom. We can build this relationship via Zoom, but there's some things that you haven't done. You said you were going to do them, but you didn't follow through. Thus, you have lost, you made so many withdrawals, your account is negative. So that's really what I'm talking about as it relates to that piece. People are either going to increase you or they're going to decrease you. And so you always have to be assessing those relationships, because they're the ones that are, like I said, what entertains you trains you. So there's always going to be these voices telling you you can't do it, or you can, or, oh, I'm not sure, or whatever. So you want to be cautious of that. You want to guard that.
Good stuff. Closing comments, Dave, Greg, Chris, anything you want to say?
So first thing, it's been great to be with everybody, and I see lots of faces of people that I know and respect and love. So I appreciate being with you today. One of the things that I would say, Chris's message that he was just giving is what I'm going to call the NFL message. He's an NFL player at this particular game. And so I want to give everybody who's not quite ready to be an NFL player a different way to think about what he just said, that I think you can probably embrace as you're working toward that other goal. And that is this: think of every hour of your time as what it's worth. What would you pay to get it back? And then you just have to ask yourself whether or not the things you're doing are worth the time you're spending doing them. And I think that's like a college level athlete way of looking about it. But if you can just start there, then you can get to that next level that's even more critical of, evaluating your internal relationships, et cetera. But I appreciate being with everybody today. It was great.
Thank you. Greg, you got anything for us?
Well, Chris is NFL, Dave is the ACC. I'm the water boy for the Little League team. So, but no, it was great. I love seeing everybody, and feel free. I'm sure Chris and Dave feel the same, and I know Lamont, you are as well. Guys, we're here to help you. Let's just all join hands. Let's join arms. Let's embrace each other. Let's help each other. this isn't you against me. This is how do we get through this and everything else together. And this is what we're all about. The real estate industry is a huge family. So appreciate your time and the energy and the information. I've got a couple good quotes I'm going to carry out of here, Chris. Thank you.
Chris, I want to give you, because I know who I'm talking to, man. I'm looking at your shirt. Tell us about your shirt and tell us about Zija and what it is you do.
Well, so Zija was a company I started with back 12 years ago. And just recently this year, that company was actually acquired by a giant in the industry, a company called Isogenic. So this was a year of transition for me. People, you pray for rain and then you cry when there's mud, but with rain comes mud. So, with opportunity comes adversity and vice versa. So it was a challenging time for a minute, but a transition. But I love, a lot of times people, Lamont, they play checkers. Most people do play checkers. I'm a chess guy. I like chess. And for me in business, chess, checkmate, is leverage. And that's me having choices and options and being able to do what I want, when I want, where I want, with who I want. And that's why I'm always wearing things that say cash flow or residual income, because that means I could have done something 12 years ago, 5 years ago, 5 months ago, and I'm still getting paid for it today off of that one transaction, relational transaction of deposit, and getting paid on it over and over again. That's why I love real estate. That's why we invest in real estate, because we love cash flow, residual income. So that's the beauty or the end of the checkmate. But with that, it's all about people, Lamont, is when you add value to people, you serve people and you deposit into people, you now have influence with that group of people. And then you have the ability to make an ask and make a withdrawal when you need. So that's where the shirt comes from.
I like it. Well, guys, on behalf of our president, Lester Sanders, and our president-elect, Charles Hinckley, we just appreciate your time and respect your success in your businesses, and just appreciate you being with us today and giving back. So you all have a Merry Christmas and a healthy New Year.
Thank you, Lamont. Thanks for taking the time to do this.
Thanks.
Anytime.
Enjoyed it.
All right.
Thanks, Lamont.
Thanks,
And
Dave.
Dave and Greg and everybody, appreciate y'all.
Absolutely.
See you tomorrow morning, Chris.
Hey, see you in the morning. Thank you, Steve. I really appreciate it. Y'all have a good one.
Thank
10
you.
a.m.
Talk to you.